All right, welcome back to JB Squared. I'm JB Hager along with Johan Bruneel, and we're going to dig into a recap of stage 3 of the 2023 Tour de France and look ahead to tomorrow, which is a very interesting finish. So we'll get a lot of Johan's input on that in just a minute. But first, let's check in with a couple of our partners and special offers. Today's show is brought to you by HVMN, a Ketones IQ. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I'll show you. Here's the big bottle of Ketones IQ, and this is 10 shots, right? But here's the little daily shot, which they've done a heck of a job with the flavoring and all this. So I can attest to it. You hear Lance and George talking about a lot of the physical benefits of taking Ketones IQ. And I will vouch for the mental benefits. I started doing a shot a day a few months ago and can definitely feel an improvement in mental clarity, energy, just alertness, sharpness, if you want to call it that. I mean, hey, I set the bar pretty low, so I could only go up. So anyway, I do love it. It has really helped me out tremendously. And most of the Peloton is using Ketones IQ. It's an extra fuel source. Why would you not want it? So you can save 30% off your first subscription order of Ketone IQ at hvmn.com/themove. Let me give it to you again. hvmn.com/themove and subscribe and check out with 30% off. Today's show is also brought to you by Ventum Bicycles. I've been lucky to get introduced to Dia years ago, and I've been riding my NS1, the road bike, for 2 years now. And just a few months just before heading out here to Colorado, picked up my GS1, which I absolutely love. And what's really cool is when you go on their site at Ventum Racing, you can play around with it and figure out how you want to build out your bike. You pick the components, you pick the wheels, you pick the handlebars, you pick the stem length, you pick the crank length, and they have a lot of helpful information to help you make that decision. And it's incredible because you can start on the GS1, a new GS1 with SRAM Apex AXS at just $29.99, $2,999 gets you onto a bike. And I always tell people when they're like, hey, what do I do? What do I need for these components, this or that? And it depends on, if you're not racing bikes, you just want to get out and enjoy it, get started, you can get in for $3,000. And you can also save 10% off. We have a code. If you want to get a brand new NS1 or GS1, just use the code WEDU, WEDU at checkout, and you will save 10%. And again, that is at ventumracing.com/themove. Okay, Johan, let's take a look at stage 3 first. No surprises there. Of course, I've listened to outcomes yesterday with you and Spencer Martin, and your first pick was Philipsen, who won today, and he was the favorite by far, at least according to the odds, and in your opinion. And but it was not without a little bit of controversy. We'll get into that in a second, but. One of the first things that came to mind is like when you have a lead out of Mathieu van der Poel, like, wow, what a duo. What a duo. Van der Poel and Philipsen. And then you'll go, I know you want to elaborate more on their lead out train from Alpecin.
Yeah. Well, today's stage, was 193 kilometers from Spain into France, into the French Basque country. So they were still in the Basque country actually, but the French Basque country, Amorebieta to Bayonne. It was, expected to be a bunch sprint. It was not an easy stage. It was a lot of up and down. Especially the beginning of the stage was really, really heavy. But there was, 2 breakaway guys. Everybody expected it to be a bunch sprint. So we had this rider Pichon from Arkea. And once again, Nelson Paulus must be on amazing form. It's clear now that he wants to go for this polka dot jersey. He said before the stage, I listened to an interview of him, and he said, he knows that there's a big chance that one of the GC guys gets the polka dot jersey, but he wants to go in breakaways and try it, and at least not be with the bad feeling at the end of the tour to lose the polka dot jersey with 15 points, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was the typical sprint stage at the beginning of the Tour de France. Nothing really happened in terms of the race except that breakaway, but especially the last 30-40 kilometers, you could sense the typical stress, the typical nerves within the peloton. Everybody wants to be in front, although nothing's going to happen, although there's no climb, although there's no dangerous corners, but everybody wants to be in front. And bit by bit, that stress and that 5-6 teams next to each other, you reach speeds of 55, 60 kilometers per hour, while the whole peloton is across the road. So that's the typical final 30-40K in a Tour de France stage at the beginning. And
yeah, when I watch them, when it starts heating up with 20K to go, and then by 10K it's just flying. But you're like, I don't think people understand like how hard it is to get 4 or 5 people from your same team in the same row when there are 4 or 5 other teams trying to do the exact same thing. And I look at the colors shuffling around. It's like a Rubik's Cube, you know, just trying to get them all lined up, and not an easy effort whatsoever.
Yeah, I heard the teams and the cyclists are using a new term now. They call it the washing machine. It is like a washing machine, right? It's like you're there and all of a sudden you're not there anymore. It's this, to be able to stay in front, and especially with a team, you have to constantly be battling to move forward, because if you don't fight, you're going backwards. And so I mean, and then especially when we see the speeds 55, 57 kilometers per hour. And that's still just leading up to the big final. Those stages, although nothing happens, take a lot out of a rider, out of a team. And yeah, I mean, I think Alpecin, the Koenig, played it to perfection. They could wait. We had Soudal. I still have to get used to the Soudal Quickstep name. We're already in the middle of the season, but still, everybody still calls it Quickstep. Yeah, Soudal Quickstep, which they were trying. Then you had Jumbo Visma on the other hand, with mainly around Jonas Vingegaard, but also a little bit for Van Aert. And you had Alpecin, which was kind of cruising the wheels, and they came to the front at the right moment. And that's really how you have to do it. But especially also, I mean, if you have this 1 or 2 guys who can go so super fast that it's already mainly a sprint to stay on the wheel. And I think this is what gave the victory to Philipsen. They have this tall guy, Jonas Rickaert, who is not a very well known name, but he does an amazing job. This is his specialty. He knows when to move up, and you can see that these guys are really trained on each other. Like Rickaert, and they have Sinkeldam, also the Dutch guy who was a lead out guy for De Mar in the past. So they really have a really good lead out train. But especially if you have Mathieu van der Poel getting to the front with 350 meters to go, and he does 200 meters of lead out. You could clearly see like Groenewegen and Jacobsen, they were, and even Caleb Ewan, they were sprinting on the wheel already. Nobody, like the first 5-6 guys were in a line when Philipsen started his sprint. So, and Philipsen is one of the fastest guys in the world. So it's very difficult to beat him, So, I mean, really well-deserved victory for Philipsen. He was the big favorite, his 3rd win in the Tour. Last year, I think last year he won 2 stages. He won on the Champs-Élysées, and then another one in the last week. But the year before, he had already been sprinting and always second. But obviously, this is a guy who's still developing and has huge potential as a sprinter, but also as a complete rider. Let's not forget he was second in Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a guy like these kind of stages where it's between 2,500 and 3,000 meters of elevation. These kind of stages are the stages where a rider like him, even if it wasn't hard on the beginning of the race, but you still have to get over those lumpy roads, and the fatigue gets in the legs, and he was the fastest today, and I was a bit surprised to see that there was a little bit of hesitance at the end. First, the joy, congratulated by the teammates. Then he goes to the seat to be interviewed, and all of a sudden, there's doubts, right? There were doubts because obviously the judges had seen the sprint from the helicopter view, and they took quite a long time actually to decide, because it looked like he was going to be disqualified, and he was worried, and I think it would have been really unfair to disqualify him, because
to paint a picture for those listening who have not seen it, a little verbal picture, I guess, with the sprinter, whoever's in the front usually pushes towards one barrier or the other. You don't want to leave both sides wide open. Mm-hmm. But if you push too far to a barrier, change your line too much, then you can be relegated to the back of that bunch, correct? And in this case, Philipsen did move over somewhat, and Wout van Aert was trying to come up between his right side and the barrier. But what was questionable is it was very confusing looking at overhead because there's white lines painted. Yeah. And if you look at that, though, it actually helped the decision because he followed that white line, which says...
Yeah, you're right. But I think here the big problem of this discussion is that the road was not straight. There was a slight turn, and the barriers were not straight, but they were following that turn. And so it looks like he gets closer to the barriers, but really what he did was he went in a straight line, the shortest way to the finish. I mean, if you're there with 200 beats per minute heartbeat, and you want to go straight to that finish line. So I don't think he didn't deviate, but he went just in a straight, the shortest line to the finish, which was not following the turn of the slight turn in the road. So I don't know exactly what made the difference. That was interesting to see because he was there, he was worried. I think it was his wife or his girlfriend was standing there with the phone to watch the repeat of the sprint. We even saw Tadej Pogačar coming, first congratulating him. Mm-hmm. While he was sitting there to be interviewed, congratulating him because they're big buddies. They know each other from their first year at UAE.
And Pogačar is very good about being the friendly guy in the peloton. He amazes me.
Yeah. No, but I don't think. I think that's the way he is. He just enjoys riding his bike. He does have a lot of friends in the peloton. That's always interesting. But so after a while, it took a long time, and at some point Philipsen was kind of getting up to leave, but then he made the decision to go to the box where the judges were, where the jury was. So he went in there where they were reviewing the images, and I don't know what he said there, but he must have made a really good case for himself. Mm-hmm. He came out and he came out with a smile. So that was nice. And well deserved. It would have been really, really not correct if they would have disqualified him.
Did you see in any post race? I did not. That if Wout van Aert had anything to say about, I didn't see that he said anything.
No, he didn't. He made a comment. He said, I was starting my sprint at the same moment as Philipsen. Then the road there was a little bit of a bend, so I got blocked in between Philipsen and the barriers. And then he said something also about people who were hanging over the barriers.
Right.
Which, for example, if you look on my background, you can clearly see, people are leaning over. So he said, but he didn't make a complaint. Since a number of years already, because I think that Lance and George were asking about that. There is no more rule that allows a cyclist or a team to file a complaint. It's on the spot, the judges who make the decision, or sometimes after the race when they get images or video of something that went wrong in the race. But you can't protest anymore. Which I don't know. I don't know if that's. I think there should be always a possibility to protest. Then the judges can still decide whether it's justified or not, right? But yeah, I mean, great start for Philipsen. Obviously he already said that he has ambitions for the points jersey also. So yeah, I mean, good start, and I think it's important which sprinter wins the first sprint. That's super important.
Yeah, that definitely is. The sprinters work off momentum big time, right? It ebbs and flows, and when they're hot, right? Let me ask you this, because we've talked earlier this year about, like, when you think of a sprinting and sprint chain, you think of all the years of Quick Step, right? That's what they've always done better than anybody. And then we've had the conversations about them having to shift things because they've got Remco and all of his talent. Could Alpecin be the next Quick Step? Who, you mentioned these other guys that you may not be familiar with, but they're perfect lead out guys. Could we see an era of dominance if that's what they choose to dominate?
Well, I mean, they are already at that level, I think. Quick Step, I mean, Soudal Quick Step, they're still there. Let's not forget, they have Fabio Jakobsen, who's leaving the team, by the way, moves to DSM next year. But still, I mean, they have a really good lead out train. They were there. Just, the way, I mean, the chaos that's going on, you may have a really well-trained team. One little thing goes wrong and your train is off the rails, right? But yeah, I mean, I think Alpecin, the fact that they have a guy like Philipsen as a sprinter, obviously they have to try to keep or hire lead out guys. So I think they're up there. I mean, listen, this is the biggest race in the world, and they show that they have the horsepower and the speed to be up there in the sprints, and not a lot of teams can say that.
Now, I believe I saw Jonas Vingegaard up there doing some work early, as they were just doing some polling, which I was wondering if a word got back to him what Johan had to say about him yesterday.
No, I don't. I mean, I think he was just up there to, he was with his team. That's for sure. Yeah. We could also, during one instance, now that some teams have opened their radio communication for broadcasting, we could hear at one point, and it was already pretty deep in the final, probably like 10K to go, what the team director watched this TV, and he said, "Okay, guys, really good. Stay up there with Jonas." I was a bit surprised that on the radio he didn't say, and Wout is there also, by the way, or something like that, right? But they did protect Van Aert. So no, I mean, just to come back a little bit on that incident of yesterday. Personally, I think I heard Van Aert's interview. He was definitely not criticizing Vingegaard. I mean, not that he would do that publicly. I think whatever that needed to be said has been said internally. But I personally think that Vingegaard himself is not to blame. I think the blame is more on the manager, on the team management, for not having given that instruction. It seems to me that Vingegaard is following the plan, following the instructions. You focus on Pogačar, don't lose him out of sight. That's it, I think it's a bit of a lack of instinct, or a little bit lack of personal initiative. There should not have been an order from the team. You're in the last kilometer anyway. So, there's and the cars were not there. The cars were not behind the first group. They were probably behind the group of Alaphilippe and those other guys. So I think that was more the case. But from what I saw from Van Aert's interview, he says, because apparently in Belgium, the Belgian media went crazy yesterday to criticize the team, criticize Vingegaard, and victimize Wout van Aert, right? And he said, we laugh with it in the bus. It's we know what we have to do. So there's more races to win, and he was really cool about it.
Okay. Another incident from yesterday I'd like to revisit. We just, on the heels of us just saying how Pogačar is so friendly and he has a lot of friends in the peloton, there was a video clip that I got out of him on his trainer mimicking Wout van Aert slamming his bottle like he did at the end of the race yesterday. I'm sure you saw that. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it was with Adam Yates. I think they were there. I think it was in the podium area, because both of them had to go to the podium for the white jersey and the yellow jersey. And I think he was, telling what happened and imitating Van Aert's frustration. I mean, you could see it as a bit of a trolling maneuver, I would say. Mm-hmm. But I just think that's genuine. Yeah, that's the way Pogačar is. He's just, he likes cycling. He loves to ride his bike and tells what happened after the stage with a lot of enthusiasm. I don't think it was meant at all to be negative towards Van Aert, for sure. I mean, listen, in Belgium, for sure, the media has picked up on it and say, yeah, look at Pogačar. He's even making fun of Van Aert. I don't think that was the intention. He was just, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, they're friendly with each other, but they're rivals, and they want to beat each other. And yeah, I mean, he was, he got his bonification, so he was happy with his stage, and he was just telling the story to Adam Yates.
Pogačar is so interesting to me because he does, like you said, he enjoys riding his bike. He enjoys racing. He's super competitive, but he also puts out this real happy-go-lucky, this is not the most important thing in the world kind of vibe about racing your bike. And he also, I feel like when he doesn't win, he's okay. Like, okay, I'll race tomorrow. He's got, and I think, he just seems to have a different attitude about it when he doesn't win. Of course, he wins a lot. So, but he handles it really well. And it's just, that's the vibe I get. He goes, hey, it's just bike racing. We're having fun.
Yeah. I mean, it makes it a lot easier to be like that if you're that good,
Right. Right. You're not worried about your next contract, right?
Guys have to pursue and chase that win, and he knows he's going to win at some point, right?
Right.
So I mean, for a guy like Van Aert, for example, I can understand it's frustrating because he's pursuing that win, no matter. I mean, let's face it, Van Aert, he's an incredible rider, incredible champion. He's always there. But if you look at this year's victory list, he only won 2 races this year, right? I mean, a lot better than that, So
he's looking at his season as a whole.
Yeah,
this is very important.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, now let's take a look at tomorrow, and we are going to get to that Ventum trivia, and I have a discount code for everybody too on We Do Stuff. We'll get to that at the end, but looking at tomorrow, and it should be another bunch sprint, but a very interesting finish. And why don't you talk about that and see how this might play out?
Yeah, well, in theory, it should be a bunch sprint, that's sure. But it's once again, it's not an easy stage. It's a lot of up and down. Although there's only one classified climb, a Cat 4 climb. But if you look at the profile, it's all the time up and down. It's not flat at all. So, I think this early in the tour, I expect a bunch sprint. And yeah, I mean, they finish on a whether it's a car racing circuit or or a motor racing circuit, but they finish on a small racing circuit. It's not that long because it looks like they get into the circuit with 3 kilometers to go. So it's a short circuit, but at least on the map, it looks like it's quite technical. There's, they get on the circuit, they have 1, 2, 3, they have 4 almost U-turns before the finish. Of course, it's a racing circuit, it will be quite wide. If cars or motors can pass each other, bikes will be able to pass each other also, I would assume, right?
Yeah, and then tracks have a smooth runoff too. If you get bumped and you're not going into a curb or a barrier, they usually have a nicer runoff.
Yeah, but it will be a finish for a sprinter who has a lead-out train, especially with those 4 corners. It's ideal to basically go high speed and line it up. So we can expect the same guys again in the front. I mean, usually sprinters take turns. We saw it in the Giro. I think every single stage in the Giro, that was a sprint, was a different sprinter that won. In the Tour, not so much, but so we're going to see the same guys. Philipsen with his team Alpecin, Jakobsen with Soudal Quickstep, Caleb Ewan with Lotto, then Groenewegen with Jayco. So
and Caleb Ewan was right up there today, by the way.
He was up there, and without his lead out man, because his lead out man Jasper de Buist crashed yesterday and he was not feeling well today. So I mean, it's gonna be. I mean, those first sprints when everybody's still relatively fresh are interesting. So I'm curious to see who takes it tomorrow, but I expect a bunch sprint again.
Okay, and this is on. You can talk about this as much or as little as you like, Johan, but we are getting a lot of questions about the tension in France. We've been running around like crazy for the last few weeks here, so I haven't been keeping up with the news like I normally do. And I think you have your ear to the ground better than anyone on our team.
Yeah, I think JB, it's a big concern. The riots in France right now are a lot worse than we think. It's dangerous. It's one person said to me, he said, you cannot imagine. It's almost like a civil war. Mm. There's so many people. It all started with a teenager who got stopped, and then he got killed by the police. It had this snowball effect, and it's not. They put cars on fire. I've seen a notification that mass events are not allowed anymore. So, I mean, the Tour de France is a mass event. I mean, they're not going to stop the Tour de France, but
other things that normally happen, festivals, concerts, whatever, are not happening during this.
I think they're not. I think for the moment they're on hold. Ooh, yeah.
Okay.
So wow. It is really, really very severe, and let's hope for France in general that they can calm this down, and let's especially also hope that it doesn't affect the Tour de France, right? Because it is a big event, and I think it's quite accessible actually compared to any other events that are in a closed off area. This is a moving event, and it's quite easy to access starts and finishes for anybody who has bad intentions. So let's hope that nothing happens to anybody.
Okay. Well, here we have a chance for our listeners to win a brand new Ventum NS1, the road bike. All you got to do is to participate is send in your answer on these trivia questions. You can play every day if you want. Yesterday, the question was who organized the very first Tour de France? And the answer was the French newspaper Les Autos was the organizer of the very first one.
Correction.
No, go ahead.
It's L''Auto.
Lotto.
Lotto.
Okay.
Lotto. So I mean, that was the newspaper. Actually, Lotto. It's a good little story about this. Lotto was the newspaper before L'Equipe. Afterwards, it became L'Equipe, right? But it was on yellow paper, and that's the reason why the yellow jersey is yellow, the leader's jersey, because Lotto was a newspaper on yellow paper. Yeah.
Well, today's question, so you can play and get in and on the drawing for the bike, is, and you probably know the answer to this, but hold on to it, Johan. Which cyclist has won both the Tour de France and the Giro d'Italia in the same year the most times?
Okay.
You got it? All right. Send that. Oh, everyone, if you can research the answer and send it in, email it to trivia@ventumracing.com, and your entry will get you entered in the drawing for the NS1 that we'll do at the end of the tour. Now I have another question for you, Johan. We're getting a lot of questions specifically for you, which is great. This is from Casey, who asked, says, "Hey guys, great show. Love it always. My question for Johan is, in the history of the tour, what rider has come the furthest back in the GC to claim the yellow jersey? Maybe a story of an awesome comeback." That is, again, from Casey. That's a tough question, but does anything come to mind?
Well, I mean, I would have to think. The one that I can remember as a cyclist was actually my last year as a cyclist, was 98, when Marco Pantani won the Tour. He also had won the Giro that same year already. So there's one guy who won the Tour in the Giro, but he only did it once. So it's definitely not Pantani, the answer to the question. But I do remember that at the beginning, he was kind of riding into the Tour. You know, back then it was still, he came off the Giro, probably didn't do that much training, and he was not looking great at the beginning of the Tour. And he was always in the back with his whole team. And for some reason, I don't know if that specific Tour, if there was a lot of headwind at the beginning. I don't know but anyway, he was always at the back, and he was like past 100 position, like 120th, 130th so he didn't do a great time trial, and just was sitting there. So in terms of positions, I'm pretty sure that he was there for a while until the first mountain stage, and then he moved up. There's probably somebody else who came from further down in the past. I do have, however, the guy didn't win the Tour that year, but I do remember Pedro Delgado, Spanish rider, won the Tour in. I want to say. I mean, I don't remember which year, but anyway, he started the Tour de France as the defending champion. So he started in last position, the prologue.
88.
So would have been 89 that he came. Wait, what did he finish in 89? Which place?
Let's see. I don't have that necessarily in front of me. Oh, 89.
So no, it's not. No. Anyway, it must have been the year before then or something. 88 he won when he was on Reynolds. So 80. So probably no, it was 87. Yeah, 87. He came to the start of the prologue, and he arrived 3 minutes late at the start of the prologue. So apparently back then there was no time cut, in the prologue, but he finished dead last in the time trial.
So wait, how does that work when you show up 3 minutes late? The clock starts ticking.
Oh yeah,
when you were supposed to go.
He lost 3 minutes from the gun.
Oh, wow.
So he finished dead last, of course, and he started like a recuperation race, and he ended up third in the Tour. I think that's the Tour that Stephen Roach wins in 87.
Second, maybe second that year in the Tour.
Was he second?
He was second.
Oh, he was second. So go figure.
Wow, and missed the prologue. Oh,
yeah.
What would you say to a rider that missed the prologue?
I mean, imagine. I mean, that's unbelievable.
I mean, you are a very calm person, Johan. You are very, very mellow, but I could see you erupting at a rider that missed the prologue. Like it would be terrifying.
Yeah. That must be. I mean, and on top of that, he started as being the favorite of the race, and he turned out to be the best rider in the race because he caught up, and that's didn't win the race, but he came definitely from dead last.
Wow. Okay.
Back to the top.
Good story. If you want to send a question in for Johan, send it to JB2 at wedo.team. And I'll skim through those. I pick stuff for Johan every day. So send something in if you have a question for him. And also 20% off for the 4th of July, our big holiday over here, Johan. So MOVE20 is a code you can use tomorrow and get 20% on all of our merch, which is great. If you need a new kit, we've got some great hoodies, jackets, hats, the Lube My Chain hat, and lots of great stuff. New kit designs. The orange forward kit is really cool. So anyway, 20% off in our entire store at wedo.team tomorrow. All right, Johan, thank you for your input on stage 3, and I'll look ahead at stage 4 tomorrow, and we will resume this time tomorrow. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, JB. Speak tomorrow.